Well, summer is coming to an end. It actually felt a little bit like fall this morning. Did anybody have that feeling when they first got up? It was a little cool and I could feel the fall coming. We are in our summer series of messages right now, looking at the 10 Commandments. And we're up to commandment number 9 today. We'll be wrapping up the series next week. And then after that, we are going to dive into the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible. That's going to be quite a deep dive this fall and looking at just who Jesus is. Today's commandment is going to be one that's applicable to us all. They all apply to all of us. Some of them, you have to dig a little deeper, like most of us when we looked at murder. Most of us haven't actually murdered someone, but we looked at the roots of murder. But this one today, when we look at this, because this commandment is about lying. It's about not lying, not deceiving other people. And when we look at the roots of it, it will apply strongly to all of us in many different ways. And in some sense, it's very simple. Just don't lie. Lying is bad. Okay, got it? That's the whole message. It's really bad. You're going to see the depths of how bad it is today. But we need to dig in so that we can see, hopefully be willing to see where some of those temptations lie in our own lives. Where are the places we are tempted or maybe are deceiving other people, putting up a false front? So for our sermon illustration, so the illustration is a little bit of fun at the beginning of the message to help us grab hold of what this means for our lives. So for the sermon illustration, we're going to do kind of the opposite lesson to the commandment. Our world is always trying to teach us how to make ourselves look better than we really are. Our world is trying to teach us to exaggerate, to lie, to manipulate other people to get whatever we want. And so I decided to sum that all up for you today. You've been taught this your whole life by the culture around you. But today we're going to have a little summary lesson of Manipulation 101. Okay, you guys ready? So this is your class. This is not what to do, but we're going to pretend for, just for fun, that we were going to learn from our culture. Manipulation 101, using your words to get your own way. This is what the world is always teaching us to do. Not using your words to communicate or connect, but to get what you want. That's how we are taught to use our words. I'll cover this class in 4 sections for our lecture today. The first one is this. Number 1, exaggerate and complain to avoid work. Yes, some of you are experts at this. Life has work in it, and we are all work. The Bible says work is a blessing, but no, we want to avoid work because what we'd rather do is just sit around all day, have other people serve us, and do nothing. And if you exaggerate, so maybe the things that are wrong with you, say they're much, much worse than they really are, right? Maybe, Einer said earlier that what's coming on Tuesday? School. Oh, for lots of students, school is coming on Tuesday. For lots of teachers, school is coming on Tuesday. I'll tell you what, if you feel bad in any way at all on Tuesday morning, just pretend that you are sick. You are on your deathbed. That little cough, that little tickle in the back of your throat, exaggerate it to the max, and you can avoid going to school and avoid work. Or if you just complain enough, this is another trick that the world teaches us. If you just complain enough, people will eventually give you what you want. Just keep on complaining. Hammer them with the complaints. I feel so sick. Say that over and over to people, and this is so hard. All right, got that? That's lesson number 1. Exaggerate and complain to avoid work. Lesson number 2, flattery is fun. Flattery is so much fun. So if you just tell other people great things about themselves, especially if they're not even true, tell them how beautiful they are, tell them how smart they are, they will give you anything you want. You are literally the most amazing person I've ever met in my entire life. You're the best. Now, don't you want to do nice things for me? Yes. So instead of actually thinking about you as a person, thinking about the other people around you, instead of actually paying attention to what they might be good at or need to improve at, just tell them they're good all the time. I was thinking about this this morning. We were talking about different ways that our culture teaches us to lie and deceive. I write a lot of recommendation letters for people. And it is amazing. If you ever put anything even mildly neutral in a recommendation letter, people will really freak out about that. recommendation letters are expected to be only positive all the time, except maybe between churches. That's maybe the only time I can write anything. If I write to another church, I might actually write to another pastor. Okay, but our culture really wants us to only talk about good things if we're trying to build someone up. It's all about the goal, not about the truth. All right, this one, playing the victim, lesson number 3, playing the victim equals victory. If you are in an argument and you don't like the way it's going, like maybe the other person in the argument has the high ground. Maybe they're actually right and you're wrong. Don't accept that. Immediately play the victim. Now you're attacking me too. You might have a good point. No, I'll just deflect that. You're attacking me. I guess I'm just a terrible person. Everyone hates me. If you play the victim, you can win any argument, even if you're wrong. Isn't that amazing? Put that in your toolkit and use that all the time. Okay, and finally, the last lesson, and this maybe is the most powerful one of all, the noble art, according to our culture, of the guilt trip. The guilt trip. If you really want to twist people's arms and get them to do things, just say things like this to them. If you really loved me, then you would do whatever I put in after this. And these 4 lessons, these really sum up. They're not all the different ways you can manipulate people. There are much more advanced. This is only manipulation 101. Some of you know the advanced lessons in 201. 301 even, manipulation. There's some high-powered techniques, but these are the basics, and really the basics will do most of it. If you use these techniques, you will often get what you want in the moment. That's actually true. You will often get what you want in the moment if you use these techniques. Flattery is fun, playing the victim, the noble art of the guilt trip. And if you use these techniques, you will destroy the relationships around you. You will spiral yourself and our culture down into the darkness. And that's what we're going to learn about today in the 9th commandment. All right, so here we are back in the 10 commandments, foundations of the world. Just remember in this series, there's a couple things. These are not just rules. In fact, they are not primarily rules. They are, of course, they're stated as rules. Do this, don't do this. Most of them say don't do this. But they are really principles. Principles that describe what the universe is really like because they reveal what God, who made the universe and sustains it every moment of every day by his power, they reveal what he is really like. And so because of that, they are dealing with reality. They are the way the Lord intended life to operate. If you violate them, you're not just breaking a rule and God's going to get you. You are going against, it's like trying to defy the law of gravity or trying to defy the laws of physics, right? It is, you will run into reality if you defy these rules, if you violate these, and if you violate the principles that lie underneath them. Okay, so today we are up to the 9th commandment, no false witness, and that is the way it is phrased in Exodus chapter 20. So remember where we're at this point. We've got 2 tablets with 5 commandments on each tablet that were given to Moses at Mount Sinai. God really made a big deal of this. Burning fire. Everybody thought Moses was dead as he'd gone up on the mountain. He was up there for 40 days getting these commandments. He had to get them twice because the Israelites rejected them the first time. They are harder than you think at first. If you are used to them and, okay, yeah, just a few commandments here. But they are deep, and they cut to the heart of things we don't want to change in our lives, but desperately need to change. And so on the second tablet, of course, which was about the commandments mostly having to do with one another, how we deal with other human beings. And we'll be looking at that. We looked at that kind of deeply last week. Well, 2 weeks ago, we looked at covenants, right? How we build deep relationships with each other and enter into covenants that can't be broken in some sense. Last week, we talked about kind of what other people really are, and that other people are children of God, created by God in his image, just like you are. And we'll see that again today, that at the root of all of these, how we're going to treat these other people, is the understanding from God's perspective of what other people really are. When you were a little kid, the world revolved around you. That's all you could think about. And that's a stage in life, but we are not supposed to stay in that stage forever. Staying in that stage forever, that life really is just about me, is death. And so other people are to be loved, are to be viewed as our neighbor, are to be viewed as important as ourselves. And that's really what underlies all these commands. So we've had do not murder, do not commit adultery. We had do not steal last week, and we looked at some of the roots of theft. And today we have you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. And this is the way in the Old Testament that God had given to Moses really to talk about everybody else around us, your neighbor, all the people who are near to you. Not just people maybe who are in your family or people who you like, not even just people who are, maybe part of your nation. Anyone God brings into your life who happens to be, by God's plan, because God is sovereign over all, who happens to be near you is your neighbor. So it really does mean everyone, but it is applied in a particular way, thinking of these people not just as some person who happens to be around me, but as my neighbor. What does the commandment mean? It does mean that you should not lie. False testimony is to witness to something, to say something that is not true. And so the commandment, in a strong sense, does mean do not lie. But like we said with many of these, there is a really obvious application, the simple following of the rule in Exodus, and then there is the deeper substance behind it and what the roots of following that rule. And so you'll see here that's true as well. The very straightforward application of this in Exodus is a court of law. When you are in court, if there's a trial going on, maybe somebody's on trial for murder, or you're suing someone in civil court. You think they wronged you, so you went to the judges. You went to, in their context, yes, the judges who are going to listen to both sides and figure out who's right. In that context especially, you should not bear false witness. That is, lie in order to get your own way, in order to get the outcome that you want. And so you can see the roots are not just lying, but lying with a particular purpose. And we'll see in a few minutes, there are some situations, they're very rare, but there are some situations where lying is not actually the wrong thing to do. But for the most part, our temptation to lie and the ways people do lie and deceive each other in the world are all to try and get our own way instead of trusting God and trusting others around us to give us what we need. We'll read another passage here. So lying to gain an advantage in court is the the most obvious and first application of this from Exodus chapter 20. But we'll read a little bit more, and this is from Deuteronomy chapter 19, and this expands the commandments. So these 10 commandments happen in the law that was given to Moses, but then there's a whole bunch of other law that's written, 5 whole books that expand what that law means. They give more nuance to it and more particularity. So in specific circumstances, what does it look like to follow this? And this part from Deuteronomy in particular shows us how bad false witness really is. And it shows us how some of this was applied for the Israelites originally. So the context here is a trial. And what's happened right before this is, if someone's committed a crime, then you have to bring witnesses. And I actually probably should have put a couple verses before this, because you have to bring, in their society, under the law of Moses, you had to bring 2 or 3 witnesses. It was not enough to just have one person, because they were trying to make sure that nobody bore false testimony, that nobody bore false witness just on their own against someone. So they're going to make it harder. If you're going to bear false witness against somebody, you've got to get a couple different people to all agree. And that's false witness. So if someone's committed a crime or there's an accusation, you bring the judges together and you bring several witnesses. And then it says this: if a malicious witness takes the stand to accuse someone of a crime, the 2 people involved in the dispute must stand in the presence of the Lord before the priests and judges who are in office at the time. So very much like our society today. It looked a little bit different because it was a different culture, but this is the roots of the modern justice system. As we've said many times, does the modern justice system come from the Ten Commandments? And the answer is absolutely yes. Now, the modern system has been influenced over history by many different forces, but its origins come from the Ten Commandments and what happened with Moses. So there's going to be a trial, and there's going to be judges. There are people who were in place to do this. And this was an innovation at the time. Normally the judges were just, in the ancient world, it was just the king. You just went to the king or whatever other noble, and they just decided. But in this case, you've actually got witnesses and a process that's happening. There's a trial. The judges must make a thorough investigation, and if the witness proves to be a liar, giving false testimony against his fellow Israelite. Now, I want you to pause there and think, if you don't know what this verse says next, what do you think the punishment for this is going to be in the Old Testament? What do you think the punishment is going to be if you bear false witness in a court, in a trial? Jail time, yeah? They didn't actually have jail sentences in Israel. That's interesting. They didn't put people in prison. Many of you might be thinking, oh, the punishment is probably death, because the punishment was death for a lot of things in the Old Testament law. Kind of, but not exactly. Check this out. If you don't know, this might be surprising to you, okay? So someone's borne false witness, and they investigated it thoroughly, and they figured out that they were actually lying to get in court to get the outcome that they wanted. Here's what happens. Due to the false witness, as that witness intended to do to the other party, you must purge the evil from among you. And this is remarkable. Probably just on this one verse, the way the punishment is brought to bear. You could teach a whole relationship classes on boundaries. If anybody's ever done boundaries material, parenting material could be taught on this. There is a punishment that fits the crime in this case. In fact, the punishment fits the crime exactly. Whatever that false witness was trying to get to happen to the person who was on trial, when they're discovered to be lying, that's what happens to them. So, let's say it was a civil lawsuit. They were suing somebody. They were trying to get their donkey, okay? And they found out it was all a lie. So now what happens? The liar gets their donkey taken away. That's what happens. The punishment exactly fits the crime. Now, I know you might think, that's not much of a punishment. I don't want a donkey. But for you, it's your car, right? It's your car. They take away your car. Okay? Or it could be the death penalty, right? If this was a criminal trial and the person was on trial for murder, or in their culture for adultery, if the person was on trial for adultery, because the punishment was the same. If they would have convicted this person falsely of something that led to the death penalty, then the penalty for that liar, for that false witness, is death. Why such an intense penalty? And here we are told, in no uncertain terms, you must purge the evil from among you. Now, you might think that means, okay, so kill the person who's the liar. No, that's not exactly what it's getting at, because that's not always the penalty. What it's getting at is how deeply evil it is to deceive other people to get what you want. What it's getting at is that is so dark that it is absolutely essential that it's purged, not just from your own life and your own relationships, it's purged from the whole society. Because if that's allowed to stay, if you just say, oh, well, we figured out that the guy was lying, no harm, no foul, everybody just go home. You've allowed the evil to stay there, and it's just going to come back again. That person who's lied is a deceiver. And if they don't have any consequence for that lying, what are they going to do? They're just going to go on and continue to lie. Okay, here, if you're a parent, you are thinking about applications right now for your children. It is not nice to them. You might feel like it's nice to them to just say, oh, you lied, no big deal, we'll move on. If we figured it out, no, that must be removed. It must be removed. Otherwise, you can never trust that person. That person, in a deep sense, has cut themselves off from the whole society. Because they use their words to influence other people, to manipulate other people, they cannot be trusted by anyone else in society. In a strong sense, they are disconnected from the society. And that separation of relationship, the Bible describes that as death. That actually is death. That evil must be removed. It is critical that it's removed. So, kind of a straightforward way to say this, lying is really bad. Really bad. Not just a little bit bad. Like on the same, these are a progression in some sense, but on the same level as murder, as in the same category, let's say, not quite the same, in the same category as murder, as adultery, as stealing from other people. Even if you got caught and you didn't get away with the lie, it's that bad. And its roots are that bad as well. So we're going to look at the roots in just a minute. We'll wrap up looking at the roots. Lying is really, really bad because it destroys the relationships. Remember, the context of these 10 commandments is a covenant. It is this deep relationship between the Lord and his people. All the people of Israel are united in the Lord, and he has sworn to them by his own life. He's made a commitment to them that's like what we do when we get married, right? When we get married, we make a commitment unto death. Till death do us part, right? So God has made that kind of commitment, that kind of covenant with them. And when people lie, it rips apart the covenant. And that's what it does between human beings as well. It's what it does when it's lying in a court of law in that sort of strongest sense. It's what it does when it's just deceptions, smaller things that we maybe don't even think of. When we are manipulating each other and we're so used to it, we don't even think about it because it's what our society does. And we change the way that we talk. We change the way that we present ourselves. We change, we maybe don't fully lie. We leave things out. We do all these little manipulations to make ourselves look better and to get our way or to justify ourselves. Those things do the same. They destroy relationship. And the Bible is trying to show us just how dark those things are, how bad they really are. All right, this next section, this is section 2 of the message today, and then we'll wrap up with looking at Jesus' words about this in the Sermon on the Mount. But I just want to take, section 2 as a little bit of an aside, because lying is, well, let me ask you, is lying always wrong? What do you think? I've already said maybe not. And I do want to clear this up because sometimes when you give a message like this, people take it in sort of a legalistic way. Like I must always speak only all the truth that I have in my mind at every moment of every day. And that would also destroy relationship. It would. So let me give you a couple of illustrations. Is lying always wrong? So the Bible's answer to this is yes, and not quite always. Okay? Yes, lying is always wrong. So don't think you can just lie. Okay, the Bible said lying's not always wrong, so that means I can lie. Okay, no big deal. No, it is really a big deal, and that's what we're trying to get across here. But there are a couple of situations where lying is not wrong. The first situation is one you will probably never be in. Please God, may none of us ever be in this situation. Lying to protect people in extreme situations. So this is the one, you're hiding Jews from the Nazis in your house. And the Nazis show up and they say, do you have any Jews in your house? What do you say? You say no. You must say no. You must lie. This is an extreme situation. It could be similar, if someone broke into your house and was threatening your family and asked you a question, is your child hiding under the bed or where are they? Lying to protect people in extreme situations is actually not wrong. And you can actually see this in Scripture. You can trace this in particular cases in Scripture itself. And the reason here is that it has a very different intention. So remember, it's not just It's never just the action. It's never just the words. It's always what's going on behind it. So bearing false witness, you're lying to try to get something to happen, something for yourself. But in this case, you would actually be lying to protect someone, and genuinely so. It's actually not wrong. But there's another case that's much more common for us, and sometimes people get mixed up with this too, where lying is not, or what it might appear to be. I'm actually going to say it's not lying, but what might appear to be lying is actually not wrong. And that is this section, I'll say, white lies and how we communicate with each other. Now, what do I mean by white lies? I mean things that are not actually lies. They're just ways of communicating. Most of us will not get caught up on this, but sometimes, especially younger people can get caught up on this. I've known a number of people who have been caught up on this idea that they were lying when they're really not. We often say this to each other, right? You might walk into a room and you might say, "Hey, how's it going?" How are you going to respond if I say that to you? You're going to say, "Good. How are you?" Did you just lie to me? What if I walked into a room and you just had a fight with your best friend or your spouse, and it's a busy Sunday morning, and I say, "How's it going?" What are you going to say? You're going to say, "Good." You're not going to say, "Oh, Pastor Isaac, I mean, you might, but you need to set an appointment to do that with me." Okay? This is just one of the ways we communicate with each other. No one expects. When if somebody asks you on Sunday morning, I mean, you can tell depending on the context, right? You might even do it like this. "How's it going?" "Good. How are you?" "Yeah, so how are you really doing?" If you wanted to initiate a deeper conversation with someone, you might ask it again in a deeper way. Because this is just a way of talking, right? And really all we're saying when we say this is, "Hi, and I acknowledge you. I appreciate that you are a person, and I'm glad you're here." That's all we're saying. Okay, so this is not lying. Don't get caught up on that. Other things that you might get caught up on like this, if I say to you, "What time is it?" and you tell me it's 10:30, and maybe it's 10:33, did you just lie to me? No, you didn't, right? So it depends on context, all right? So this is what I mean by white lies. Here's another one, and this one you might actually classify as a lie, but it's not actually. It's just a way of caring for each other, really. If you come to my house for Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, I am going to make you Brussels sprouts. Why? Because Brussels sprouts are the best. They are the best. Yeah, shout out if you love Brussels sprouts, okay? But now, probably about 70% of you hate Brussels sprouts. Now, you are going to eat my Brussels sprouts, and when I ask you, "How do you like my Brussels sprouts at Christmas dinner?" what are you going to say? You're going to say, "They're really good, Pastor Isaac. Thank you so much." Even if you hated them. And that is not, I mean, you might say, technically speaking, it's a lie, but what's your motivation in this? Your motivation is not to manipulate me. Hopefully it's not. If it is, then it's wrong. But your motivation is just to not be mean to your host who just made you dinner, because you're going to also love the turkey that my wife made and all the desserts that she brought you. So you're just not going to like my Brussels sprouts, perhaps. And so you're going to be kind to us in that moment, and that's all that is. So don't get caught up on that. Is lying wrong? Yes, it's wrong. But really, it's the heart behind it. So here we're going to wrap up looking at this message by looking at the words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. And this is a section in the book of Matthew. And in this section, Jesus, he takes his cue not only from the Ten Commandments, but in many cases from the Ten Commandments. We've already looked at some stuff he had to say about murder. Right? When we looked at murder, we looked at Matthew chapter 5 to see the roots of murder, which he said were anger and bitterness and contempt. He also talked about adultery in this section. So he's following, in some way, the Ten Commandments. And he has a section in the Sermon on the Mount where he doesn't exactly talk about lying, but what he talks about is taking oaths, so vows. And this section is very interesting. I'm going to sum it up. We'll sum it up before we go through it with this phrase. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Say what you mean and mean what you say. The way Jesus is going to put that is, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Which is a powerful, it's actually way better than this phrase. It's a powerful, almost a visual image that he gives it. It's wild. So he's going to show us here the roots of why bearing false witness is wrong and kind of where it comes from in us and what's really happening when we're doing that. So here's what he says. In each of these sections in this part of his sermon, he is expanding, you could say, or deepening, or fulfilling one of the earlier commandments. He's saying, here was the commandment, but here's actually what's deeper, the deeper principle, or the fuller expression of that commandment. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. So here he seems to actually be paraphrasing something from the Old Testament. It's not a direct quote. Interesting. So they've been told if you make a vow to the Lord, you got to follow it. And I think the idea is that was breaking a vow was seen as a form of false witness. You had said, yes, in the name of the Lord God, I'm going to do this thing, and then you didn't do it. So you were false. Your witness was false. You lied. Jesus says, I tell you, do not swear an oath at all. Don't make a vow. Either by heaven, for it's God's throne. So the idea here is some people might have been saying, I swear I'm going to do this. I swear by heaven, right? It's not something we do in our culture, but they certainly did. Or by the earth. Don't vow by the earth. I swear by the earth itself, for it is his footstool. Or by Jerusalem. They really valued, Jerusalem was the center of life for them, so they would swear sometimes by the city of Jerusalem itself, for it is the city of the great king. Do not swear by your head. So that was people swearing sort of on their own life. And this is something we might be a little bit closer to in our culture. I still don't think people would do this very often, but you might hear in a movie or something, someone say, I swear on my life that I'm going to do this. That's this. Don't swear by your own head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. And then he says, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Oh, what did the NIV do to this? I didn't even realize they had changed this translation in their most... I like much better or more literal. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. So this is a very strong statement from Jesus, just like we saw a very strong statement in Deuteronomy, right? When there's false witness, you must purge the evil from among you. Here, Jesus is saying, when your words deceive other people, that actually comes from the devil, Satan himself, who is known in Scripture, and Jesus calls him the father of lies, right? Father meaning the source, the origin of lies. So when you kind of get into his game plan, you're doing things the way Satan would teach us. All that illustration we had at the beginning, Manipulation 101. When you're doing those things, that actually comes from the evil one, Jesus says. Now, this, if you think carefully about what Jesus says here, you might find some problematic statements. You might find some things that you'd say, wait, really? And that's true for many things Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount. He is being very extreme in order to make a point, a deep point. So one of the things you might find extreme is this. He said, we just read it, do not swear an oath at all. Have you ever sworn an oath in your life? Have you ever made a vow in your life? If you are married, you most certainly have made a vow. Was that wrong? Did that come from the evil one? Of course it did not. Jesus is not saying you can never, ever, he's actually not giving a new law here. He's trying to show us what's behind the law. So he's not saying you should never, ever make a vow. So don't take it like that. But what he's trying to get at is many times, in that culture especially, And sometimes in our culture today, the reason we make vows is in order to manipulate other people. So if you think about it, why would a person make a vow? Like, let's say two people were talking in the ancient world, and someone, in Jesus' time, and someone said, I'm gonna give you this donkey. I don't know why I'm so focused on donkeys today, but I am. I'm gonna give you my donkey right now, but later on you're gonna bring me the money for the donkey, right? And the person says, yes, I'm gonna bring you the money for the donkey. But then the person, you could tell there's not trust going on between the two, right? And so the guy who's buying the donkey says, no, really, I'm really, really going to come back. I swear by heaven, I'm going to come back and give you the money for the donkey. Just let me take it right now. I'm not a thief, okay? Why is he doing that? He's doing that because there is an assumption that he might be lying. So the purpose of an oath, like if no one ever lied, if every person in the whole world always told the truth all the time, would we need vows and oaths? Probably not. If every time I said I'm going to do something, I always did it and so did everyone else, I wouldn't really need a vow or an oath. I would just need to say, yes, I'm going to do it. Just like the guy with the donkey, yes, I'm going to bring the money back. But because there's so much deception, so much lying in the world, that's why these oaths exist at all. And what Jesus is getting at is that many people use those things to try to manipulate other people. Now, we don't do it so much with oaths. We might do it more with, if you think of kids especially, we might do it more with words like, I promise. No, I don't trust you. I don't trust that you're really going to do that. No, I promise. This time I promise. Just give me the thing I want, and I'm right. I know the other times I was lying, but right now I'm really telling the truth. I'm going to do it. So all of this, Jesus is getting at this idea that we are, some of them who were using oaths, maybe most people in the ancient world, and many of us today are using our words just to try to get people to do what we want, instead of using our words to communicate truth and build relationships. And so this is what he means when he says, let your yes be yes and your no, no. Is that we should not deceive or manipulate in any way with our words. Another way we could put it is we should not try to control people with our words. And just as we wrap up today, I want you to see why this is. If you were here last week, we talked about why can't we steal from other people? Why is that wrong to begin with? Because people are made in the image of God. We saw that at the end of Genesis chapter 1. And we're made to reflect God in many ways. One of the ways we do that is by ruling, right? This is what we said in Genesis 2. He created mankind in his own image, and then he gave them the ability to rule over parts of the earth. That doesn't mean any of us are the king over everything, but each of us has certain things given to us by God that are under our authority, right? I have some stuff in my house, and that stuff is under my authority. And if you come and take it, that's wrong because you're not treating me as the same as you. You're acting like you're the real child of God, the real ruler of the universe, and I just don't matter if you just take my stuff. Well, the same thing is true with lying and bearing false witness. People have decisions that are under our authority. I should be able to decide, what I'm going to do maybe after church. I should be able to make my own decisions about my life. And if someone else comes in and pressures me, deceives me, manipulates me, takes away my ability to choose, tries to control me using their words, they are not treating me as equal to them as a child of God, made in the image of God. They're treating me like I'm an object, actually. They're treating me like I'm meaningless, and they are the only real important ones in God's sight. We could also say it by saying, don't take away someone's ability to choose. If something is within someone should have a choice over a particular thing in their life, and we can't go into the details of that. There are all kinds of agreements in life, and all of that is good. But if someone should have the right to choose something and you try to manipulate them into getting what you want, you are taking away their ability to choose. You are robbing them of that part of the image of God that they were made to be. And we can see this if we'll wrap up just with these two verses that I'm going to read for you. We can see this is what's behind some of Jesus' expressions of when he sums up the law. What is all that law, all those 10 commandments and everything else connected with them? What is it all really about? Jesus gives two different answers to that question. One of them, he says, someone asks him, what's the most important thing in the law? Teacher, what's the greatest commandment in the law? And most of you will know this. What he says is, you're supposed to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And I don't know if you've ever thought about, why does he add as yourself? Why doesn't he just say, love your neighbor? Because what he's communicating, what the law is trying to communicate, is that before God, we are all infinitely valuable. We are all made in the image of God. And so I'm not supposed to put you above me or me above you. I'm supposed to value you as I do myself. He says the same thing. Later on. Actually, backing up, in the Sermon on the Mount, he has the famous golden rule, and we'll end with this. He says, in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. This is the exact same idea. How do I know how to treat you? Well, you are a person made in the image of God. What does that mean? You're just like me, a person made in the image of God. That feeling that all of us have, that I'm the center, I'm really important, what happens to me really matters. All of us have that feeling. What the Bible is saying is that's true of the person next to you as well. And that's why all the 10 commandments, and that's why all the law. That's why we must make our yes, yes, and our no, no.